Hashem during the Holocaust? There's a very simple answer, and it's not politically correct. The answer is, he did it. That's the answer. He was there, he's the one that did it. And not only did he do it, he told us he would do it. He told us that he would do it 3,300 years ago in Parashat Kitavo. He also told us that he would do it in Parashat Bechukotai. When you look at the Torah codes for the Holocaust, you'll find many of them in Parashat Kitavo. But last but not least, if we forgot what was written in the Torah, he also told us about it in the Gemara, Masechet Megillah, page 6b. Yaakov Avinu is praying for Am Yisrael. And he says, Master of the universe, do not grant Esav, meaning my brother, the wicked, the desire of his heart. But here he's not talking about his brother. He's talking about Esav, the nation, Edom. Do not grant Esav, the wicked, the desire of his heart. Do not remove his nose ring. So Chazal ask, what does it mean, do not move his nose ring? So treat him like one of these bulls. A bull as big as he is, but if you pull on the nose ring that the people put on him, he loses all of his power. You can maneuver the bull as much as you want from this little ring. So Yaakov is pleading to Hashem, okay, I understand you have to give him power. He's one of your tools to punish us if we don't do what you say. But at least put a nose ring on him. Control him. Don't give him what he wants, meaning don't give him free will to do whatever he wants to us. We still haven't talked about Germany. So now it talks about Germany. So the Gemara says, what is this referring to? Zu Germania shel Edom, she'ilmale en yotzin micharivin, kol ha'olam kulo. Translation, this is Germania, a royal province of Edom, who if they would but go forth, they would destroy the entire world. In Hebrew, the word for Germany is Germania. And it's saying this Germany is one of the descendants of Esav, of Edom. So now this could just be a coincidence. Germany, Germania. How do we know this is written 2,000 years ago? How do we know this is definitely it? Number one, Germany did not exist 2,000 years ago. There was no such country 2,000 years ago. If you look at the US government archives, which I did, and you look at the history of Germany, you see that Germany was founded 800 years ago by a combination of 300 barbarian nations. 300 barbarian nations came together and created the country called Germany. So let's see what the Gemara says. Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina, this is one of the sages, says, there are 300 crowned princes in Germania of Edom, and there are 365 chieftains in Rome. And every day one group goes forth to encounter the other group, and one of them is killed. And they would then have the trouble of appointing a new ruler. So now we see that Chazal is explaining to us, yes, this Germania, it's come together from 300 chiefs, 300 leaders, 300 nations. But eventually it's going to have 365 generals within it, where every day they're manipulating each other in order to kill one another, in order to become the official leader. This is what actually happened to Germany, where if it wasn't for their terrible leadership at the end, they could have actually won the war. So now that we see that even this Hashem told us about. Hashem told us about everything. The Gemara and the sages is nothing to scoff at. It's not something that we say, who is this Rambam that made this halacha about Mechalel Shabbat is not considered Jewish? Who does he think he is? Who is this Rabbi Akiva that's saying that I have to keep kosher and I have to keep Shabbat and I have to lay tefillin? Who do they think they are? We just talked about them for the last hour. These are not regular people. There was actually a scientist that was a Nobel Prize winner, heard about Rambam, and he scoffed at it. He says, listen, I heard that there's a statue in Washington of the Rambam, and they call him one of the 18 most important people that ever lived. He was a physicist, he was a philosopher, something extraordinary. Doctor, major sage in the Torah. They don't know him for the major sage, they don't know him for the rabbi part. They know him for the everything else. He says, what's the big deal of this guy? Why do they make it such a big deal? And the rabbis that he came to says, Rambam lived almost 800 years ago, and his wisdom was something beyond our comprehension. He says, I'm a Nobel Prize winner, I know it's nothing big deal about him. Like, listen, Rambam not only wrote the halachot and broke down the Gemara, the oral Torah for us to understand what to do, what not to do, what's tahor, what's taref, black, white. He told us exactly what to do. But he did it in a similar style. Le'avdil, obviously, the big difference, but nonetheless, he did it in a similar style as writing of how Hashem wrote the Torah. Meaning that Hashem did not put one extra letter in the entire Torah. Everything was precisely there, and there's not one extra letter, there's not one extra sentence, there's not one extra dot in the Torah. Meaning that Hashem used the least amount of letters, least amount of words to provide the most amount of information. Einstein used to say, if you can't explain something in a simple way, then you don't understand it well enough. If you truly understand something, that means that you have to be able to explain it to anyone, including a 4-year-old child. To show true wisdom, you have to show it in the least amount of words. Like sometimes you see books, and they're 800 pages, but in reality the guy could have written all of that information in 30 pages. Why did he write it in 800 pages? Either number one, he doesn't know the information well enough, or number two, he knows no one's going to buy a 30-page book for $50. But they'll buy an 800-page book because it looks more significant. So the Rambam wrote the halachot in the least amount of words. So this scientist scoffed at it and he said, what's the big deal? Give me an halacha, I'll learn this halacha, and I'll write it in the least amount, less words than him. I said, okay, learn the simplest halacha there is. Whatever you pick, you do. Go work on it as much as you want, then come back to us and explain that halacha, the entire halacha, in the least amount of words. He worked. Several months later, he came back. He says, okay, this is the halacha. He wrote the halacha. He wrote it in 31 words. They peeked at the Rambam, like, no, a little less. Few more months, 27 words. A little less. Few more months, he got it down to 21 words. Explaining an entire halacha. I mean, entire halacha, you could read several books about one halacha. So this is actually, he's not a fool. But nonetheless, he got to 21 words. It's like, he was completely confident. He was like the Tam and Aviram. In our week's parashat Korach, where after they went against Moshe Rabbeinu, they're walking with their heads high, and the Torah says they're walking straight up with a lot of gava. So he thought he got the job done. 21 words. He opens the Rambam, 7 words. And not only 7 words, but those 7 words explain the halacha much better than the 21. When you actually start studying Rambam, just a little bit, you start realizing that the smartest person we have in today's generation is closer to a monkey in intellect than he is to the Rambam. That's the difference. And the Rambam was 800 years ago. He wasn't even enough to be one of Rabbi Akiva's students 2,000 years ago. Why? Because the least of Rabbi Akiva's students had enough kedusha and wisdom to revive the dead. So the Rambam was not enough to be one of Rabbi Akiva's students. But people say, nah, what does Rabbi Akiva know? What does Rambam know? Who do they think they are? Okay, go figure it out. So you understand? So when we talk about the sages, it's not talking about regular normal people. To us, it's as foreign as it could be. It's closer to being an alien than it is to be a man. The wisdom that the sages had is divine wisdom. But in our generation, in order for us to do what Hashem wants, we have to have proof. We need proof because our generation is very weak. And this is the reason why it's very important for everyone to know things like this, to learn how you can feel Hashem. Feel Hashem.